We've been talking a lot about boundaries on this channel, and one place where a lot of people need to maybe bolster their boundaries is in their relationships. And so that's what we're going to talk
Mhm.
about today with an expert. If you're new here, my name is Giovanna, and I specialize in helping hardworking women regain their power by pausing for self care. And now I'm going to allow my expert to introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Janelle. I am a relationship coach. I specialize in working with professional ladies who are 35 years old and older. I started out my coaching career in more of an executive level coaching and leadership because I work in a financial services industry for my day job and have a lot of exposure to those ladies and some of the barriers they come up against as they're climbing the ladder. So that's where I started, and COVID was really kind of an eye opener to make me do a shift in saying, okay, I see a common theme of where a lot of these ladies are having some sticking points, and it was around relationships. So I made that pivot around that time, and I've never looked back since, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that sounds great. So, you want to stick around until the end of this video because we're going to be talking about boundaries throughout the relationship. But towards the end, we're going to talk about those red flags that you need to keep an eye out for when you're in the beginning and searching. So,
Mhm.
can you tell me a little bit about what it was in your coaching that inspired you to focus on helping professionals find love and build healthy relationships?
I would have to say, just being a Black professional myself, you see oftentimes Black women who are professionals, we have it very hard in finding suitable partners that are in alignment and compatible with us. And from my own personal experience, from talking to friends as well as talking to clients I was working with on more the executive side, it led me to, this is where I want to be. And I particularly work with mainly women of color, mainly Black women, but women is my niche. And understanding the challenges that are very unique to us when we have done the work and have the degrees and certifications and have a lot of the material trappings of success, and just trying to find that partner or looking for the certain characteristics that would be in alignment for us in terms of partnership. So that's why I decided to do it. It was my own personal struggle, and then I saw a lot of people going through the same thing. So
Okay, so and I can definitely relate to that. And so you talked about, you said the challenges. Can you kind of expand on what some of those challenges are for professional women who are looking for love?
I will definitely, even just speaking in terms of, African Americans, it is very much expected for Black women to achieve a certain amount of success. But oftentimes, when it comes to partnership, which specifically speaking for women who are over the age of 30, there's kind of this unspoken expectation many times from our families and our community for us to settle for men who look like us but have not done nearly as much work as we have put into building our lives and pursuing education. And it's a very unfair thing. And it's very uncomfortable when you have relatives. I know this was my experience at one point. We have relatives saying, "Oh, you should give so and so a chance." And you're thinking, this man has lived his life like a disaster. There's no way that I that we're in alignment and that I would give him access to my person or my resources.
Oh my
And that's not to
gosh.
be flippant, but that's to be honest. There's a lot of
Mhm.
Black women that have this experience, whether it's from family, friends, church. There's just like this unspoken expectation, what especially once a woman hits 35, like, oh, you've been doing good in life. Why don't you give this person a chance? And you're thinking he's been making disastrous decisions for 20 years. I'm not
Mhm.
here to be, shock
Dragged
absorber for the
down into
things,
his disaster.
right, into his disaster from, from being imprisoned, from, having multiple children by multiple women, to just kind of being
Mhm.
lazy, to being uneducated. He also doesn't have the salary earning abilities, and money matters. Anyone who
Mhm.
tells you, "Oh, money doesn't," they're lying. We live in a capitalistic society, and alignment in terms of earning potential is important. because
Hmm.
money is one of the like top 5 reasons people divorce. So why are you saying money doesn't count? So after seeing a
Hmm.
lot of those shenanigans and experiencing them myself, I, have seen the problem. So it's like I needed to take a very strategic approach to dating myself, and then working with my clients, I'm able to also walk them through and help develop their own strategic approach to finding, more compatible partners for them.
Yeah, it reminds me years ago, I'll never forget, there was an article in Essence, I think it was Essence or Ebony, one of those magazines. And you probably know what I'm going to say. It's one where they were encouraging women with Black women who have their masters, their PhD, successful, credentialed women to take a look at truck drivers to give your time to the guy working at the garage shop. That's a good man too, and to be fair, maybe they are a good man as well, but it
Correct.
hit a lot of women in the wrong way because no other group gets told
Correct.
that type of
Correct.
information, but we're supposed to be happy to get whatever we
Yeah.
can get.
Correct. And you saying that sparked a reminder of, I think it was about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, where Ian Van Zant interviewed um, Ebony K. Williams, and she asked her about dating a truck driver. And Ebony K. Williams' answer I thought was perfect. She said, unless he owns the company, no. And so many Black men were so upset at that answer. And it's like looking at Iyanla Van Zant's history, she needs to do some self-reflection, you know. But and I said I had to think about the answer myself, and I said I wouldn't necessarily do that, but why? Like, what is my why? Because if he's
Mhm.
earning this, certain amount of money with me, and I figured it out. I said I would need more information. If he's a bus driver by day, but say he is getting his realtor license at night, or he's a barber and he's building his own business, we could have a conversation. If he's a bus driver by day, full stop, we could never work. And I figured out what it was. It's not just about money. One
Mhm.
part of it is formal education, but the second part of it is about ambition and complacency. My ambition is going to irritate a certain type of man's complacency, and his complacency is going to irritate my ambition. So people don't like to say it, especially in our community, but it's true. There is a certain amount of ambition that a woman who has multiple degrees and professional certifications and things has. Of course, she has the material trappings that you see, but she's operating at a very different level than a man who may just be a truck driver. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory. I'm saying that
Mhm.
to say, how are they having conversations? What are they discussing? Because he's going to be very annoyed when she's talking about she's making this plan and she sees this for her career and she's paying off this debt, when he's not operating on that wavelength. So it's bigger than just money. It is education alignment, but it's ambition and complacency. And two people who are at a disconnect there are always going to butt heads. And so articles like the one you were referencing, or what Jan Van Zandt said, asking Black women to settle, or when Tyler Perry said that women need to accept somebody to pay the bill. It's foolish on the surface, but when you dig deeper, it's really my ambition and a man such as that's complacency. We're going to butt heads, and that's going to be, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. And I think adding on to that, not only will you butt heads, but looking at the way that society is structured, all of the messaging
mm,
that we receive with, the man is supposed to be the breadwinner or the man is supposed to be leading the household. If he's bought into that, your ambition is going to cause him to resent you because he's going to
correct,
feel like he should be in that position. And so why are you, quote unquote, trying to be the man in this relationship when I'm the man? So for sure.
correct. And
So
once again, that is something you only hear from Black men. I hate to say that. I love Black men, but that's something you don't hear when you date in other communities.
yeah, that I can say that has been my experience as well. And so you talked about when you heard that interview and you asked yourself that question, you had to figure out why you felt that way. And I know that you
Mhm,
talk about self awareness in your coaching. So,
mhm,
looking at that, how important is it for someone to have a deep understanding of themselves before looking
mhm.
for a partner? And then how can that help them attract the right person?
It's very important. I would say because of all the social commentary we have with social media and the gender, he'd say, but gender wars, it feels like sometimes. It is good to listen to some of those things, not to internalize them, but to journal about them and really think through some of the arguments you hear on both sides. Because a lot of times we're just operating in the way we operate. We're not aware sometimes of, things we're not open to or boundaries we have, etc. So I think it's a great way to start to develop self-awareness is listen to those things and reflect on how you personally feel about them. And it's very important. So if you're ever faced with that situation when you're out and about, you already know I've kind of thought through this and I know I'm not open to that rather than getting into something, maybe getting too far in and then it's very hard to get out, or getting in and being disappointed and then blaming the other person for your disappointment. So it is very important to understand where you stand and why you have a feeling. Like I said, I think that bus driver conversation where got a lot of people in an uproar a couple years ago was great because at first I was like, oh, I wouldn't date him either. And I was like, but it's deeper than that. Why is it deeper than that? And it took me about 2 weeks to figure out why it was deeper than that for me. So it's very important, and it helped me understand why I'm looking for certain characteristics in a partner, and why when I work with my clients and who they're seeking, that they're very clear on the characteristics that they're seeking in potential partners.
Yeah, and I love that you talked about journaling. When I'm working with my clients,
Mhm,
that's one of the things that we work on through meditation,
mhm,
and other self-care. And, for people who are watching who are interested in taking that pause to get more in touch with the answers to these types of questions and other questions, I'll have a link in the description to my membership, the Hiatus Collective, that'll be opening up soon, that gives you resources such as on demand and live
mhm,
meditation, yoga, journaling sessions, and group coaching, because there is power in pausing to assess and
mhm.
recalibrate so that you can make choices that are in alignment for you.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
speaking of balance, when we're talking about professional
Mhm.
women, we got all the meetings, we got extra classes because we are always getting certified
Of
in
course. Of
something or
course.
another. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
Very true.
sitting here now working on additional certifications. Um,
Understood. Same.
but it's things that I love. I love to learn. I love to grow. I can't help
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
But as someone who is working with high level professionals who, do it all and who are working on balance, what
Mhm.
are some ways that you help them in terms of balancing those ambitions while also trying to find and build meaningful, lasting relationships?
One of the things when I begin working with any client is understanding where she's at. And a lot of times, especially with women who, like you said, are doing it all, they're used to operating at one speed, and that's go. From get up, it's go. And it's learning how to and sitting down and journaling, even if those ladies many times enjoy doing it, they don't have the time to do it. So one thing I start out with is baby steps. Do audio journaling or video journaling. We all have a phone that can record a video or record an audio, free built in our phones systems. And so we start there. Hey, when you wake up in the morning, just hit record and record your first thoughts. At lunchtime, do it as well. At the end of the day, do it as well. And then, before bed. And we build up. It's not try to do it all at one time. That at least gets them in the habit of starting to become more aware of how they feel, how they're operating, what's really going on. Because also women in certain environments, as we know, we're used to just turning off emotion and just keep we're just keep going. We're just keeping moving forward. And when you're operating at that mode, it makes it very hard to date because you need to learn how to understand nuance and you need to learn how to be in your environment. And you can't operate in the boardroom the way you're going to operate in the relationship, as though many of us have tried, me included. But you have to become more aware of your emotions. You have to feel your emotions, and then you have to emote, and then you have to kind of deconstruct some things first before you're even open to date. And when you come up against something that is not in alignment with you, usually it'll happen a lot earlier when you are more tuned into self. So that's how I start the journey to help them get more balance, is let's start just tuning into how we feel, because most of us don't know how we feel because we're just operating on go mode all the time.
Yeah.
And then once we do that, then we can talk about, okay, if you're working all these hours with these projects, what's realistic for you in terms of socializing, in terms of going out more. And then we work from that aspect. Then we can start kind of like a puzzle, figuring out what can we
Hmm.
keep, what can we, you know, pull back on in other areas of our lives and other commitments, etc. So that's where we start, and then eventually we partner to work and craft on a program that is specific to them, customized to them, based upon the
Hmm.
structure of my coaching. And we work that, you know, and then we have feedback, our weekly sessions, coaching sessions that do feedback, and then we adjust as needed.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that is so important because professional women are on goal. That's how we get things done, right? And you
Correct. Right.
do have to, worry about your emotions later. That's how many women operate. Um,
Hmm.
but when you're not listening to your gut and you're not in touch with your emotions and you're not in touch with your body, you miss a lot of
Hmm.
things. And you oftentimes, like you alluded to, don't even know what you really want. And that's so important when we get to the point of you're in the relationship, and you need to set boundaries, or maybe even you're still in the dating part and you need
Hmm.
to set boundaries, and women struggle with that. So, what are some key boundaries that you think should be in place when you're kind of navigating a new romantic connection?
This is definitely going to differ for every woman, the, you know, really niche specifics, but I would say overall, we you all need to be, you know, the non-negotiables in terms of boundaries is anything that's abusive, anything that's disrespectful, anything that is manipulation, because if you're not paying attention, it can slide in, and there are really some smooth operators out here, especially
Hmm.
when you're dating, you know, more successful men and older men. They've had a longer time to, you know, hone their craft. So
Uh-huh.
those are kind of the key
Craft
things
and
that
deceit.
you want to be very, very mindful of, as also for the clients that I've worked with and do work with, who are even a little more open to dating men who are more in the blue collar field. You have to look out for men trying to mooch. Not all the time, not at all. But I can say I've seen it a little more there because they know the women that they're dating are making a very nice salary. And a lot of
Mhm.
times they'll want to have, you know, take advantage of this. And women, we are, most of us are givers, you know what I mean, by
Mhm.
nature, as well as socialization. So they won't see a problem with, oh, you know, he wants to do this, and then we'll have a coaching session and we'll really look at some scenarios, and then they'll say, oh, okay, I see the pattern. It's a, yeah. So it's catching those things early. So anything that is abusive, anything that is manipulative, anything that is going to cause them harm in the end, those are where you have to have very strong boundaries up front. There is no second chances with stuff like that. The first time you see it, it's done. And the earlier you can root that out, the better.
Yeah, agreed for sure. So that made me think of something else. When I remember being with my ex husband, who was one of those poor choices, to say the least. That's why he's an ex. And having some friends, being around some friends early on who were not a fan, right? But I could
Hmm.
not see it. And so it made me wonder, because sometimes your friends are helpful, but sometimes maybe not. So, as a relationship coach, what are your thoughts on bringing a potential person around your friends so they can kind of, give you their gut feeling?
I would say, thankfully, the ladies that I've worked with are at the point in their lives where they've kind of gone through and routed out any of those not real friends in their lives. So the people around them, it's usually a smaller group, and these are women that they know have their back. Of course, not always, but more often than not, the people who are they truly consider friends are friends. And I say, once you are comfortable with this person, invite them out to something casual. It could be like
Yeah.
Top Golf, or a trivia night at a local place, venue, or something that your friends do. Something very light and not pressured. And
Mhm.
then your friends, especially women, they're just gonna assess. They're just gonna see how he wrote. You know what I mean? And then I say, if you really trust this woman with your life, if you really trust this man with your life, if you would trust them with, having your child being taken care of if something happened to you, and they're giving you genuine feedback, take it
Mhm.
into account. Now, where I've seen this kind of go a little off the rails, is when clients maybe have jumped into a physically intimate relationship too quickly. So there's a very
Mhm.
strong physical tie with a prospective partner. And I tell men and women this: crazy people are the best people in bed. Okay. That's why that goes for men and women. Do not, because they know that's part of their manipulation. They know they can do things that
That curl your
other
toes and
folks
make you
can't
forget the
do.
reason.
That curl your toes. Correct. The men can curl toes and the women can, suck the tacks out of a tack board.
Oh my
So it's
goodness.
very important, if you're serious about a relationship, to be very mindful. I'm not trying to be preachy with anyone. Everyone has their time frame, but I always tell clients, you definitely want to get your friends feel on a person before you progress to that level, because if there's a disconnect between how you feel, because now you have like a chemical connection with them,
Mm.
and the way your friends are assessing it, it's going to cause friction, and that you're going to have to resolve. So I definitely tell people, wait it out. I know years ago Steve Harvey came out with that book, and it had a lot of, controversy around it, but he said that, like, 90-day rule, to think like a man.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's a bad idea. Now, everyone's timing is a little different, but the point of it is, you need to really get to know a person, kind of really feel them out, bring them around people you trust and get their feedback before you
Mhm.
go to that next level. Because crazy people, men or women, are very, very good in that, because they are trying to get their hooks in a person before the person realizes all the crazy behind the curtain. So,
It's just cracking me up.
but it's true.
Oh, oh my God, it is true. It is true. It is true. Yes, true. So, getting back to boundaries here, what kind of role do they play in healthy relationships, and what's the best way to communicate them effectively? Because, women are givers, and women tend to be a little bit hesitant to put their boundaries down because they don't want to
Mhm.
seem mean. Or really, I've seen it go two ways: either they're hesitant, or everything's a no immediately, and there's got to be some give and take in relationships, right? So, what's the best way to communicate those boundaries effectively?
It's a touchy one, because a lot of women, even in, at our grown ages, with all of the letters, we have this still fear of scaring men off, right? If we
Mm.
say we don't want to do something. And it's you have to come to the point to say, I'd rather scare him off. But guess what? Real men who are secure in themselves and who are at a certain level of maturity, they're not going to be scared off. They may say, "Hey, what you're saying doesn't align with me, and that's okay." but he's not going to get scared off. That's the first thing I think women need to understand. But the best way to have these conversations is be honest from up front. And some of the tactics I've used and still use that I think are going to scare men off sometimes don't work. Like I say, I don't cook, I don't clean, I don't live with men. I don't like. I just end up like, okay. I was like, I'm just letting you know. So, but
Get
okay,
it out.
I'm a little very forward. That may not be the best way, but it's about having the open conversations early on and having that space where you guys go on dates and you are having conversations. Go on dates. To be clear, this is not Netflix and chill. No one should be going to anyone's home. I just want to clear that up. Those dates, but dates are social outings that cost money. So
Oh,
have those conversations early, get comfortable with one another, and hear what his standards and boundaries are as well, especially. And then you can determine really quickly, like, hey, I don't think we're in alignment, or hey, I think that we, have a chance of, seeing where this goes because we have very compatible views or we're in alignment on a lot of things. So the earlier you can talk about them, the better.
that reminds me of when I got online, because, after my divorce, back in 2015 or so, I took 2 years off. I wasn't dating anybody. I was doing therapy. I was doing all of that work, mindfulness, yoga, I was doing all the
Hmm.
things to back to myself. And, got back in the dating scene and was dating a person, realized it wasn't working out. And I was prepared to just, descend into my cat lady era and got a couple of cats. I was ready to call it quits. And then I said, let me try one more time. But this time I'm putting myself out there as my true self. And so I think that was the beginning of my boundary setting because I remember in my profile being very clear about who I was and what I wanted so that people who were looking at my profile knew immediately, right? So I was repelling
Hmm.
people who were in alignment. And then, of course, I had to do some further repelling because people still tried it. But, you try to put those boundaries up in the
Hmm.
beginning and
Hmm.
maintain those as you're going out. And so that definitely reminded me that you've got to put those boundaries up immediately so that people know. Yeah. So
I-
dating,
that brings
oh,
up a great point about online dating. That is something I tell clients that not tell, but we work with clients, and it's like at the beginning, do not get online. You need to go outside. You need to go and be places, and that in itself is kind of a tool to help weed out some very low effort individuals because they're not putting forth the effort to get all dressed up and go out and be in those spaces. And then when you're going to higher end spaces, once again, that weeds out certain individuals. So that in itself can kind of cull some of the herd versus just getting online. So I say at the beginning, it's don't get online, but eventually you can. But at the beginning, it's good to just go out and meet people face to face.
Janelle, where would girl? Okay, your girl is an
Okay, okay.
introvert. Okay,
Hmm.
and first of all, I never went anywhere, and number two, when I did go places, nobody was approaching me. I
Hmm.
smiled. Nobody was
Hmm.
approaching me. Anyway, that's a whole nother that's a whole nother tangent. I always felt like if I wasn't online, I would never meet anybody. Because if I wasn't at work, I was at home in my PJs and with my cats.
Fair, fair, fair. It's hard. I'm an omnivert, so I understand, but it's breaking that habit because if you don't, even if you meet somebody, a lot of times it can just ascend into Netflix and chill at one another's places, and that's not dating. I really, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because you're just comfortable with one another, and that's not. Sometimes it can work out, but sadly, there's too many people that aren't necessarily safe that you don't want to get too comfortable with too quickly. So that's why I encourage the going out first and then getting online. So online dating is not bad when you really have a focus and a goal to do it, but to do it right out the gate can sometimes lead you to getting back into your comfort zone, especially for the introverts and the omniverts out there too quickly.
Yeah, yeah. So let me see. So the dating can be tough, right? Dating is not
Mhm.
for the faint of heart, especially when you're talking about rejection and disappointments, things you
Correct.
thought that were going to work that didn't work. What's the best way for women to kind of build up some emotional resilience to kind of navigate these challenges without losing hope and saying, you know what, this cat situation is going to work just fine for me?
I think one of the ways to really be prepared for the rejection and the sometimes lack of options that are out there is to really have done the self work to, we're never finished, but to an extent where you're very comfortable with yourself and also have developed enough emotional intelligence and learning to trust your intuition. I have found a lot of times when I've worked with clients and they've gotten in a situation and it did not turn out good and or turned out bad, um, it was because they weren't leaning into intuition. They rushed into a physically intimate relationship, so where there was an attachment there that made them it very hard for them to see the truth about someone's character, and they had not developed in certain areas, of within their own person to be able to withstand the situation. So it kind of really toppled them for a while. And it's like, it's okay. Nobody likes to be rejected. Nobody likes
Mhm.
to go through some of these circumstances. And if you really had been listening to yourself when you self reflect on it and we, work through something that happened, if you're honest, if you would have been a little bit more prepared,
Mhm.
would you have chosen them? And a lot of times the answer is no, I probably would have chosen him. Or if you wouldn't have met him and tried something new and maybe jumped into bed very quickly, would you have been as attached to him and not being able to see, the manipulator behind the mask? So it's making sure you're developed enough, but also being very comfortable when you see red flags, back away quickly. Even if those red flags are pretty. You know what I mean? Even
Mhm.
if those red flags are coming the exact package that you want, back away quickly, but that comes from maturity.
Yes, yes.
We've
That
all been
reminds
there.
me. I was online the other day and there was this, I can't remember who it was, but somebody who talks about celebrity stuff. And he was talking about Chris Brown versus, what is that singer's name? Daniel Caesar, I think. Two
Okay.
different,
Mhm.
physical
Mhm.
aesthetics. And he
Mhm.
was saying that the only reason Chris Brown is still acceptable to some people is because he's attractive, and this other person is
Mhm.
not considered conventionally attractive, and
Mhm.
he did something and got immediately canceled. He wasn't beating on
Correct.
women, but he did something else that was,
No, he
you know,
he yep, yep. It's
yeah.
true. Chris Brown is extremely talented, but it's true. We know colorism and texturism and all those things,
Mhm.
featurism are very prevalent in our communities. So yes, because he is light skinned with good hair and can sing, we know that's
Mhm.
why he can still do the crazy stuff he does, the not good thing stuff he does, and still sell out concerts. Versus Daniel Caesar, who I think made some tweets or some comments that were very anti-black, and people just automatically
Mhm.
canceled him, and he never rebounded. So yeah, it's absolutely true. It's sad, but it's very true.
Yeah. So, from your experience, speaking of those red flags, what are some red flags that people need to be aware of when they're dating? And how can they, let's just talk about that first, and then I have a follow up question.
Oh man. Okay, so red flags that can be. Let's talk about the red flags that can be easily avoided. Okay, we have all, I think, at a time in our lives when we were younger, dealt with or dated or were in the presence of men who were not of the best character.
Mm.
Dated men who were in some unsavory activity, all the things that you do when you're young, in your early 20s or late teens, whatever.
Mhm.
You were a kid then. We're grown now. So if you're still dealing with those same types of individuals,
No.
so I would say that the easiest red flags. of course, men who are in unsavory activities as a profession. The second, I would say, and this can be harder if you're, in a major city or you're in an entertainment industry, are men who are in any type of athletes, professional athletes. Not all professional athletes are bad, of course, but let's just say this: that is a profession that allows a lot of access to a lot of damn near goddess like looking women. So it's a very it would be a very uncomfortable place to sit, I think, as a person dating someone there. Another thing is any profession where a man has a lot of money, similar to athletes. So you're talking about surgeons, you're talking about, defense attorneys, you're talking about some of those professions where a man is making a lot of money and he travels a lot. Not impossible. All men in those professions aren't bad, but it's something that you have to really sit with yourself and ask, okay, do I want the
Can I?
foolishness that can
Yeah.
potentially go along with this? No, I
Do I
mean,
want to
poor
find
men
out that
can
my
cheat.
husband has
Poor
a
men
second
can
family on the other side of the country?
correct, correct. So it's one of those things, and even blue collar professions, truck drivers are known for that. They can have
Hmm.
families in different cities. Men in the military are known for that. So it's looking at certain professions and really assessing, do I want the potential? I would say law enforcement is another one. They have a very high rate of domestic violence, and understanding that you may not be able to get help if you are in that relationship. Not all, police officers are, but is that a risk you are potentially willing to take, understanding that profession? So I say looking at certain professions and automatically saying, I don't think that's for me, or proceeding with extreme caution if you decide, you know what I mean? Because all men in those professions aren't terrible men. But I could say the statistics show that some of them are prone to certain behaviors, and you need to look at that. So those are that's like low hanging fruit for red flags. Other things that come up pretty early on have to do with dating. I did an episode on this, I think, in my first season of my podcast about who pays for the first date. Now, the women that I coach, as well as myself, we're dating grown men. We're not dating men in our 20s. We're dating men who are in their 30s and above, usually 35 and above. 35 to probably maybe 60 is the range of the age range of the men that myself and or my clients have dated. If he's still quibbling about who pays for the first date, huge red flag. Huge red flag. If he's not asking you on dates, huge red flag. Like certain things, does he? Because it's not about you can't do it on your own and all this. If he doesn't understand courtship, that's a
Mm.
problem. If he's trying to treat a date, another red flag that it comes up when you're on a date, I've seen some women say that, he expects something from it. If he's treating you as a date like a woman who is a sex worker, that's problematic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
His mindset is he need to go with God. He's not your problem. You need to cut him off. Like so, it's those things that you hear and see early on. Don't ignore him. If he says anything, disrespectful, if he calls you out of your name, like those are like easy red flag. Do not, don't respond to him anymore. Block him on everything, and you need to be that final. I know a lot of women say, "Oh, I don't want to block him, or I don't want to, what?" No, cut off your
Block.
energy,
Yeah.
block, not argue. If violence, if he seems prone to violence, because you can tell how somebody reacts to things. If they seem very triggered very easily, if their demeanor changes, if they're trying to physically intimidate you, that's those are signs that they are probably violent, and you don't want to be anywhere around that or entertain that. So it's paying a lot of attention in the early stages, what they say, what they do. And a lot of times men will test you. They'll say exactly what they want or don't want because it is the first or second date and there's no real attachment yet. I take a person at their word. If they say something, I'm not going to think he didn't mean what he says. No, you're an adult. You meant exactly what you said.
Mhm.
And working with my clients to really do that as well, because women are socialized to always give somebody another chance,
Uh-huh.
always give him the benefit of the doubt. No, your
Mhm.
safety is important. If he said something crazy, cut him off. And the earlier you do that, it will also help train him to say, "Ooh, okay, I'm not going to do that next time because some women really are not going for the foolishness. It's very
Hmm.
important. So I would say those are some of the red flags. And then once women are in relationships, I would say the biggest thing to always pay attention to is your financial safety. Don't ever surrender your ability to move away from a situation to a man. I know we've been socialized to believe in Disney fairy tales, but don't put yourself in a financially disadvantageous situation. And working with professional women, that's usually not too hard because we've worked so hard for these degrees and certifications and to climb this ladder. Very few are willing to give that all up. But I would say that's a big one to kind of look out for long term, as a red flag.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that one for sure. And then I would add too, when you're dating, to pay attention to how he treats the service people. Because I have
Yes.
found that men who are very dismissive of people who they
Hmm.
perceive as being a lower
Yep.
station or who can't do
Yep.
anything, it's very indicative of their character, and that will eventually hit you. Yeah.
Yes, and that goes for both genders. Men should watch out for it in women, and women should watch out for it in men. You are absolutely correct. First dates are important, and another red flag, early on in the talking stages, if he's not setting a date to take you out within the first week of connection, maybe 2 weeks if it's really crazy with schedules, he's just wasting your time and wants your emotional labor of talking to a woman. Women provide value even if we're just doing that. Women provide value to men even when we're just fighting with them. So it's very important to mind your energy. And if he's just wants to send you good morning texts and all that foolishness, but hasn't asked you out, he's just playing. He just wants somebody to engage
Mm,
with, some female energy to engage with.
mm, mm, mm. So, okay,
Yeah,
all right. So you have definitely given, I think, I hope you've given people something to think about. And for those of you who are watching, definitely you need to connect with Janelle if you are in that stage where you are trying to find love. So, can you tell us a little bit more about what you're working on and how people can connect with you?
absolutely. So I'm probably most active on posting on my YouTube channel, but I'm on Instagram. You can reach me through email at my website, thesuccessfulinvisible.com. And that is the relationship coaching arm of my practice. I definitely have in the description of any of my videos ways to connect with me, and to sign up for kind of one of my free courses. I'm rolling out my next cohort in January, and I will make sure the links to that are included for this as well. So anyone who's interested and they just want to be a better dater, they just want to date with more intentionality, they want more success in dating. I, of course, do not promise marriage because that's not what this is about. Working with clients, sometimes they realize they don't want a partner, but they had to get
Mm,
honest with themselves about that, and that's part of the work. It's figuring out what's best for them, and I enjoy what I do and connecting with other women who have done the work and have all the trappings of success, and they're like, okay, what do I have to do to get the partner? And it's like, let's wait. Let's first work on you. Let's work on some of that self awareness. Let's work, and then we can get to being more intentional and better at choosing people that we're dating and engaging with.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think if you want to take one of those first steps, in the meantime, while you wait to sign up for Janelle's services, take a look at this video up here or up here. That is a quick and simple body scan. I don't know where I'm going to put it. I'll put it up one of those places. A body scan meditation that allows you to do some of that work that we talked about at the beginning of this episode, where you just get in touch with how you're feeling and how your body is reacting to your thoughts. It's a quick meditation, so definitely
Hmm.
check that out. Janelle, it's always great talking to you. I'm so glad that we were able
Same
to
to you.
connect again. So thank you for being here. And everybody, again, check out her work. All the links will be in the description. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me. Talk to you later.
Bye.